I swear that's great, Miss Great, Miss Great. You look into my eyes, you can see what I see. If you can say the world won't be the same without me, then we call that great, Miss Great. And that's a blessing. But wait a second, look, while we on the subject, let me ask a question.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Uzi Sports Show. Jared Veluzzi here, and on today's show we'll be breaking down the top 10 single game performances in the New York Catholic High School Football League from 2018 and 2019. And before the top 10, as usual, we'll get to the honorable mention, and we'll start with the defensive side of the ball, something that you won't really see much of on this list because of how much offensive talent there was in the league for the past 2 years. But Nick Alvarado of St. Anthony's, his performance against Monsignor Farrell on homecoming. Not one interception, not two interceptions, but 3 interceptions. And he says, this one I'm going to take to the house. He also had a field goal block return for a bunch of yards to set up St. Anthony's for a touchdown. And for the Friars, there was doubt in 2019. Is this the year they finally lose on homecoming? Alvarado had a different idea in mind. St. Anthony's won that one. And another honorable mention, Derek Robertson, one of the best quarterbacks I've seen in this league. He shredded Cardinal Hayes over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, really had a good game there. And another honorable mention, my final one actually, will be Joey Carino, his revenge game against Chaminade. In 2018, he had his worst high school game ever against the Flyers, but in 2019, Stepanak travels to Mineola, and Joey Carino throws for 5 touchdowns, dismantling the Chaminade secondary. It was really fun to see. I was there in person, and Carino really had a day. Now, on to my top 10. We're going to go out to Staten Island. Back in 2018, in the regular season, Farrell, they host Cardinal Hayes. And Monsignor Farrell, if you look at the rosters, they were the underdogs going into this game. But Vin Wagner, over 250 yards total offense, both rushing and receiving. He had 2 touchdowns, just a truck of a running back over there at Farrell. He helps the Lions pull off a big upset over Cardinal Hayes. They won that game 26-24, but Wagner, really impressive. 2 touchdowns receiving, but also over 200 yards on the ground. Real special day for number 33. And now we go to number 9. And it's going to be, we're going to go to Battle the Bridge over at MetLife, where Iona Prep played against Pope John, and it was the Gales' second game of the year, where Darius Wilson, the junior quarterback, proved he belonged. His coming out party was against Pope John. 290 yards passing. I believe he had 3 or 4 touchdowns in the air. He also ran for one on the ground with over 80 yards rushing. He showed he could do it with his arms. He could also do it with his legs. And Wilson had a big one over a really good Jersey school. And now we go to number 8 on my list, and this is a AAA AA crossover game. It was Christ the King against Kellenberg, but Christ the King, they put up 67 points against the Firebirds, and part of that reason was Noah Bottom. 440 yards passing, I believe 4 touchdowns through the air. He had his way with the Firebird defense. He really put on a big-time show. Now we go to number 7 on my list, and this was a playoff game. Iona Prep, undefeated at the time, hosting Cardinal Hayes, who was the underdog. But this one's going to be a little bit of a duo. Quarterback Henry Bellin and wide receiver Kuno Mendes, 2 underclassmen in this game, just played absolutely phenomenal. Bellin, almost 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and almost half those yards went to Kuno Mendes. 9 grabs, 192 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He absolutely torched the Iona Prep secondary. Cardinal Hayes pulls off the big upset en route to their league title. But number 6, Kuno Mendes, special receiver, and Henry Bellin, both of them have such a good connection, really showed off in that one. And now we go to number 6. And this was probably the biggest upset I've seen in the last 2 years. And in one of my prior videos, I said this is probably the biggest upset I've seen in the last 5 years. Chaminade really struggling. They go against the defending state champs, Archbishop Stepanak. And the man who really pulled it off for the Flyers, of course the Chaminade defense played amazing that game, but Anthony Pecorella, quarterback, punter, kicker, he did pretty much everything. He even ran the ball from the QB spot as well. He throws for over 200 yards, the long touchdown pass to Connor McCormick as well, and Chaminade pulled off the big upset 13-7, but Pecorella really punting Stepanak to make them go 80-90 yards when their kicking game wasn't that strong at the time, and making a couple big field goals. And of course the long touchdown pass. Pecorella does it all. Chaminade stunned Stepanak in that one. And now number 5 on my list. Same year, 2018, Stepanak won the state championship, and part of the reason, they did win in a blowout, but Sean Harris's performance in the 2018 state championship was one to remember. 9 catches, 205 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But not just the stat line. You got to look at the way he did it. Let's see the highlights here. Sean Harris, he made guys miss. He ran some phenomenal routes as well, making some amazing catches. He showed he was one of the best athletes in the league that year, and he really showed up when it mattered most. On to my number 4 single game performance. And 2018 St. Anthony's, it was their homecoming against Cardinal Hayes. It seems like there's always a hero at St. Anthony's homecoming. And this time, Kyle Angus. He only had 8 touches this game, but 187 total yards and 5 touchdowns, making the Cardinal Hayes defenders look silly at times, which is not easy to do. Angus had a hell of a game. Anytime you score 5 touchdowns, his career high, just something special to see. And of course, it was a lot of Greg Campese that year. And Kyle Angus proved to people why he was one of the best running backs in that league. And 8 touches, 5 touchdowns, can't get more efficient than that. Now we go to number 3. And you look at Cardinal Hayes and Kellenberg, their matchup in 2019. Kellenberg goes into this game with, I believe, a 22-game win streak. And of course, Cardinal Hayes is one of the top teams in the AAA. But the real matchup people were looking at was Jordan DeLucia of Kellenberg, one of the top running backs in the state. Jalen Smith of Cardinal Hayes, who a lot of people at the time said he was the best football player in the state, who also happened to be a running back. So this was going to be an extreme matchup of the running backs, if you will. And we'll start with Jalen Smith's side. 16 carries, 330 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He destroyed the Kellenberg defense. But if you look at what Jordan DeLucia did, his offensive line was there at times, but he had to break a lot of tackles. And look at this play. DeLucia says, "Get your ankle, doctor." DeLucia to the house. And he had a couple of those, 256 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns for number 7 in blue. But Cardinal Hayes, Jalen Smith just says, "I am a better athlete than you." 330 yards, as I mentioned before. He had a special day. Both of those running backs really just took that game into their own hands. Cardinal Hayes did win by a lot due to Jalen Smith's amazing performance, but we can't forget about DeLucia's game. And now we go to number 2. And if you look at 2018, St. Anthony's, they host Stepinac. And going into that game, Greg Campese, remember going into this game, he only had 2 losses in his entire varsity career. Both of them came to Stepinac. So Campese's revenge this time came against the Crusaders, and he had 6 total touchdowns, 224 yards through the air. He threw for 5 touchdowns. Danny Parker had a big day, but Campese, he didn't just do it with his arm. He did it with his legs. Over 180 yards rushing and a long touchdown. Campese put on an absolute show. He showed why he was one of the best quarterbacks to come through that league, and just an absolute dominant performance against the soon-to-be state champion Crusaders. And now we go to the number 1 single game performance from the past 2 years. And it's hard to really not put this one at the top spot when you're talking about breaking records. Malik Grant, 405 yards on the ground, a Catholic High School Football League record against Iona Prep in the semifinal game. Remember, this was a playoff game. Malik Grant, one of the top running backs in the league, and big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. Malik Grant did that countless times. He got the ball 32 times, of course, over 400 yards. He found the end zone 3 times, and when Stepinac was up 37-26, he really just iced the game on a long carry. And Grant, one of the most special performances I've ever seen on a high school football field. And everybody, that was my top 10 single game performances for the New York Catholic High School Football League from the last 2 years. I'm Jared Veluzzi. I hope everyone had a fun time watching. Have a good night, everybody.